Yeah, thank you, Linda. And call the meeting back to order. We had a short break of 10 or 12 minutes. And we had Tom Brock, Representative Tom Brock from the Health Ag Committee, is going to give us explanation of the ag department's miscellaneous ag bill that the House has taken testimony in and has passed over to us, and we have it before us. So welcome, and you can run through your notes, and we don't need the whole long time, but if we get a few bales of hay, we put the rest of it together, I think.
Well, that's good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. My notes start with section 1, 24 VSA. This is the on-farm business, accessory non-farm business adjustment. This section amends the requirements for accessory on-farm businesses to clarify that a business can qualify as an accessory on-farm business if 50% of the total sales from that business are from qualifying products produced on the farm where the business is located. Currently, law provides that 50% of the total annual sales must be from the sale of qualifying products principally produced on that farm. Principally produced is defined as 50% or more of the product by weight or volume is produced on that farm. This creates confusion in that 50% of the sales have to be from products, 50% of which are produced on the farm. The amendment clarifies for a business to qualify as an accessory on-farm business, 50% of the sales must be from qualifying products from that farm. It's just the agency was confused, and I think they may have they have confuses exactly what 50% of 50% is 25%. So they wanted it to make 50%, which was the intent of the original law. Okay, now I'm going to section 2, VSA electronic service, VSA 1. Excuse me, I had an eye operation yesterday. I'm kind of fuzzy here. The agency wants to be able to communicate and serve certain kinds of documents via email. This is what this is about. It authorizes the Agency of Agriculture to serve persons using electronic service instead of personal service or certified mail, provided that the agency proves that the person receives service or the person subject to service agrees to electronic service. The agency may prove receipt of service whenever the person acknowledges receipt or otherwise responds in a manner that demonstrates actual service. The service may not be proved solely by an automated electronic read receipt message. Person or entity may agree to accept service through email by written consent. This is to speed things up when they're serving kind of legal documents and whatever. They want to be able to email as many as they can. All right, I'm going down to section 3.6 VSA 22, pending allegations or past violations. This is simply an adjustment that would allow the agency the authority to consider an appellate's pending violations or past history of compliance with the agency requirements. The Agency of Ag may deny an application based on pending allegation of non-compliance or compliance, provided that the agency provides the applicant with notice of the decision and an opportunity for a hearing under 6 VSA. The section also provides that an applicant makes a timely application for a renewed permit or other form of approval, or is seeking a new permit or other approval for an ongoing activity with the agency. The existing permit or other approval remains effective until the agency acts on the final application or until the last day a person can seek review of a denial. This is basically the agency doesn't want to give a permit on top of a non-compliant or to a non-compliant person or farm or whatever it may be. And the last section here is produce inspection. This is the agency wants to get produce inspection laws lined up with the Food Safety Modernization Act. In 2015, the General Assembly granted the Agency of Agriculture the authority to enforce the Federal Drug Administration's Food Safety Modernization Act, known as FSMA, standards for growing, harvesting, packing, holding of produce for human consumption. This grant of authority was necessary because the Vermont Department of Health is the state agency that is normally and traditionally authorized to enforce FDA rules. The FSMA rules have evolved since 2015, and the agency has requested changes to state statute to ensure that it continues to have the necessary authority to enforce FSMA regulations. That's it for my section. Any questions?
Straightforward, Senator Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know yesterday Senator Pearson had questions about the 50% situation. I don't know whether he wants to re-ask Tom the question that he had yesterday or not. We also have received from Ledge Council an example of this.
Yeah.
Chris, did you want to do that or?
Well, sure. The question was that the 50% is derived by the value, right?
No, weight, it's value or volume.
Let me pull it up.
What Mr. Wynn said, let's reduce. I'm gonna get this right here. Weight or volume? Weight or volume?
I'm just struggling to find the language.
Yeah.
On the farm would now be sales.
No, it's the volume or weight.
But was that Michael?
Yes. What did Mike say? Oh, Michael's here.
Right. So currently the principally produced definition that is being struck requires the determination of whether the product is 50% produced on the farm by weight or volume. And instead, what this is doing for section 1 is moving away from that weight or volume to a total annual sales, 50% of total annual sales. So you will see that the language now says that storage, preparation, processing, and sale of qualifying products, provided that more than 50% of the total annual sales are from qualifying products.
I do have that.
So can you just direct me to the page? I've got the bill now, but
Page 1.
okay, I skipped too fast. Oh yeah. So we're the storage, preparation, processing, and sale of qualifying products provided at more than 50% of the total annual sales. So the question I have, and I'm not quarreling with what we're trying to do. I'm trying to make sure that we do a good job and that it seems like, so this entertains that you could process something, right? Storage, preparation, processing. And we know that you can import things. And if you were, if you grew some kind of grain and you were making bread, you would clearly have other ingredients that had to go into that. And so I'm just trying to understand if you can process things and half of the money has to come from products that you processed, why? I guess it's a little awkward because we talk in the second half of qualifying products that are produced on the farm, but then we also allow for processing, and I just don't understand. It seems in conflict, or at least not necessarily consistent.
Well, I can see where you get into trouble if you were selling vegetables, carrots and all this, but you took and sold maple syrup from your neighbor and your vegetables sell for $1 a pound or whatever, but your gallon of maple syrup, you sell it for $50. And while you're selling that gallon of syrup for 50, you're only selling $25 worth of your own produce that you've grown on the farm. So it throws your sales way out of whack, and you could become non-compliant because your sales are not 50% from the products that you make on your farm.
Right.
Whereas if you were the maple syrup seller, selling your own maple syrup, you could take the veggies from the other neighbor and do a heck of a business, and you'd never even have to worry about catching up or running over on the value. So I think we'll have to have some further discussion with the agency on that issue. Yeah, are you all set, Tom?
Yes,
Are
I am. Thank you.
Wait a minute, we know you are, but what about the committee? You all set?
Well, the
Well,
other question,
I mean, I guess I just would like us to flag this and
Yeah.
Michael, do you think, I don't know, I'm sorry, maybe I missed that, Senator Starr, but I mean, is there an issue here, or am I just worrying about something that's not existent?
I actually think your concern is about the structure of that clause, and I think I can resolve that for you, but I just want to double check with the person that drafted it, and then probably with the agency. I think it's all just about the clause construction.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian, did
yeah, and I think actually Attorney Merrick answered it. The question came up yesterday in terms of the person. Okay, let's back up. So the agency, if this goes through, would have the ability to electronically serve papers rather than use the US mail. So the question came up, what if the served party just never responded to the initial inquiry about receiving electronic notices and used it as sort of a delaying tactic to strengthen the thing out? But he says this is not a mandatory or replacement of paper, but allows the agency to use electronic service. There will likely always be individuals that require in-person and certified service, but that happens even now with the mailed service. So
they're gonna do that if they have to.
yeah, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. And I just want to say that we just had a wonderful testimony from Senator Parent in our committee. He just blew us away, and I want to say that, so.
They want something now.
you don't have to answer, but how much do he give you to say that?
Well, I haven't counted it yet, Senator, but it's a fat wad.
It'll
Thank
go
you.
20 on each side, fill the ones.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate you
All right.
coming down.
All right, thank you all.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to see you.
See you.
And I hope you heal well.
No, thanks.
So now we have Mr. John O'Brien. I guess there's a couple of section 5.
4.
4.
Yeah, for the record, State Rep John O'Brien. So yeah, I'm the middle reporter. I did 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And when I reported this, because you're all different than you know a lot more about ag than the house in general. So I just prefaced this for the body, saying it reminds me of when the agency comes to us. It reminds me of in our local Chinese restaurant, they've got one of those spikes on things where they slap a receipt down on. And this reminds me of that AFM. They must have something like that during the year. And if anybody's like, oh, we need to do conformance on this statute, so that we're in conformance with federal law. They write a memo, they stick it on, and come January, they have something for us, and that's what this feels like. So pretty much all these things were conforming with federal authority. So, and that's true with section 456 is all about aligning the agency with, in this case, FSMA, which is under, connected to the FDA and USDA. And specifically, this is about farming and adulterated produce coming. So it's about produce farms and adulterated produce, and just the agency's ability to inspect these farms for produce that's adulterated and enforce what they find too. And so that led to definitions, and I was like, what is adulterated? And adulterated is, in general, it's produce that say, like Tropical Storm Irene, like a lot of produce got adulterated because it had flood waters that had who knows what in it, touching food. Also, adulterated food could come into contact with human or animal feces, pathogens too, like something, if you have an E. coli or salmonella, listeria outbreaks, and whenever they see, say, in packaging unsafe, there's rat feces or mice have eaten the food, so all those sort of things would make produce adulterated. And as far as a produce farm, it seemed like the definition led to, Dr. Haas was all about this, because it's her division, raw agricultural commodities. So, and it seemed like the wall, the dividing line there was between foods you grow that you can eat raw, so radishes, say, versus foods you need to cook, produce you need to cook, like pumpkins. So if you need to cook it, sort of like maple syrup, you wouldn't necessarily want to drink sap from sap lines, but you boil it and it's totally safe. So it's sort of like that's the dividing line between what's happening here. So a lot of farms that raise, say, pumpkins don't have to submit to these same guidelines. But if you grow lettuce, radishes, anything you can eat, fruit, same thing, then you're into this. So it was all aligning AAFM with FSMA authority, which is under FDA and USDA. Also have, I feel like Cyrano de Bergerac is, and anything I say wrong, I probably correct me
Got
on,
a
or
big stick over there, right? Reach over and tap you
but Dr. Haas is really good on this too. So if you want any more details, bring her. And the next was, is anybody from a mosquito control district?
Yep.
There we go. So of course, Representative Shaw is also a watchdog on this. And this is all about, I guess, that the backstory here is that there are two mosquito control districts, one around Lake Dunmore and one around the Lemon Fair River, Wade Ridge, that way. They both get a grant from the agency for doing larvicide to kill baby mosquitoes or embryonic mosquitoes. They also, the Lake Dunmore district, which is what it's like Brandon, Pittsburgh, Wester, Goshen, Fern Lake, and Dunmore. They also do some adulticide, which what's happening here is that the agency wants to sort of put a firewall as far as following the money. So they don't want to be seen, it's more optics. They don't want to be seen ponying up grant money for adulticide. And this is because the law school, Vermont Law School, and some other plaintiffs have brought a suit against, I think, something, it's A&R, DUC, or one of those. It's not the actual agency, but about adulticide that's related to bats dying, and that would be a taking, I guess. So while that's going on, the agency just wants to get out in front of this and say, like, we do not give money for adulticide, just for larvicide, which is not part of the suit. And so the 140,000 they give to the two districts split in half, there's a match at 25%. The districts have to come up with 25%, and they of that, and then they get the funding. And in the past, if if they used part of that but had left over, they could use it for adulticide or in kind. So whether it's office space or in kind paying volunteers, that sort of thing. And now they're going to try to create a wall between those two.
Because one's a pesticide and has
You
serious
spray, right?
chemicals.
Yeah.
Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm hoping that we'll have Representative Shaw come in and testify. I watched part of his testimony yesterday to the House Committee. My impression was, and I could be completely wrong, that the other entity involved was CLF, Conservation Law Foundation,
Yeah.
and that the suit has already been decided and they lost.
Oh, really?
That's what I was told. I don't know if that's true or not. So I think you're correct, John. I think it's more an optic situation because I'm not sure the agency, well, I think Kerry Jaguar might be able to help us out as well. Because I'm not sure he would agree with this provision. So I think more to come on that.
That's right. Kerry's, I think, actually behind this. And he said, and I think Representative Shaw said, well, what about other districts in the future? And Kerry was saying, I guess, perhaps Colchester and one other, North Hero maybe, have talked about potentially starting a mosquito control district in, at some point. He said in bad mosquito years, they talk about it, and bad years where they're not a problem. Conversations.
Okay.
But, it doesn't prohibit them from either creating a district or potentially fighting mosquitoes. It's more your tactics involved, I think.
Right.
The last one was the state hemp program, which you've probably all done a lot of reporting on already. And I know Mike's always up to me through figuring or describing. First there was 2014. There was the federal pilot program for it, which we followed, and then at some point, the 2018, the federal farm bill said, "Oh, you have to align with us," but they created an extension for the pilot, which we stated. But finally, that ended, and the federal farm bill said you have to now follow the farm bill regs on this. But as a state, you can come up with your own policy as long as you conform to our broader definitions or enforcements, that sort of thing. So actually, the agency, I think, proposed our state policy as far as all these things like what THC levels are permissible and that sort of thing. And it was approved. So now we're under the farm bill. But because that other caveat was you have to actually play by our rules too now at the federal level, a couple things need to be changed. One is that originally, way back in the pilot program, it was called industrial hemp, which I think probably the motivation there was to create distance from it's not marijuana. It's exactly something that's made in a factory. And now also there was in the past, if you had so-called hot hemp, had above what you're allowed THC levels, so it was closer to marijuana, or had you could potentially use it for euphoric effect. In the past, you could get a waiver and give it, or maybe somehow get somebody get reimbursed to a medical dispensary, and now that's no longer happening. You just have to destroy it, and so the agency would oversee that too. So that's section on him.
Brian.
Yeah, I don't mean to dominate this, John, and you're doing a great job, by the way. But when we walked through it yesterday, I remember the discussion about if the Delta 9 THC level is at a certain point, it triggers an alarm sort of. And the three verbs that were used, I think, were disposal, destruction, or remediation. And so we've talked a little bit about flipping the order. And I don't know whether this makes any sense to our legal counsel or not. And by the way, Attorney Merrick did a great job summarizing. I'd like you to pass that along to him, Michael. If the first thing listed was remediation.
No, it was it was,
No, but I'm saying if, so
No,
we
flip them.
we potentially would suggest perhaps that we put remediation first and then destruction and then disposal. And I wasn't really sure what the difference between destruction and disposal was, but again, he's come up with a pretty clear answer with his answer to us. Does that make any sense? In other words, would there be more emphasis on trying to save the crop, so to speak, rather than destroy it if we put remediation first in that list of potential things?
Unfortunately, you cannot save the crop.
Okay,
If it exceeds the allowable THC level under the USDA rules and now under the state's approved hemp cultivation plan, it needs to be destroyed.
so why is remediation even in there?
I was just looking to see where that is in there. Where is it?
well, right in that line of,
I'm not looking at the bill, I'm looking at Gordon's.
it's page 12.
There is ability to,
He says, I was mistaken on the remediation topic. The new rules state you can remediate through destruction of flower or other means that make the crop unconsumable. You cannot exceed THC to bring into compliance, which is what you just said.
right.
So do we need,
I think there's it's the fiber provision. You can destroy the flower. You're not going to be using it for oil, but you can use it for the fiber.
okay,
That's what that is.
So potentially you could turn it into animal bedding or.
Right, there's
Hemp
the
treat or whatever.
insulation, the building materials, etc.
okay,
I didn't know about that.
okay.
So, any other questions for John? No? No? Well, thank you very much, John, and we'll move on to Rodney. Are you leaving or are you staying?
Oh, this is much more fun.
Thank you.
I like your
Yeah,
style,
thank
Rodney.
you. Thank
I
you,
like your
John.
style. Thanks, John.
So, morning, Rodney. Glad to see you and have you with us. So you're gonna be starting on section 9?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so section 9, under current water quality rules, you apply to be a medium-sized farm or you reapply for the general permit of a medium-sized farm. The water quality requires a inspection within 18 months for potential discharges or stuff like that. However, medium-sized farms have to be inspected every 3 years annually. Plus, the agency has to respond if there is a complaint. So this will just get rid of the 18 months and still be inspected every 3 years, or if there's a complaint. There is one time inspection.
Yeah.
And then section 10, originally when all this started, they didn't really know where all the small farms were in the state of Vermont. So they were required that if you change ownership, you had to notify the agency. But you now believe they have a pretty good handle on where the small farms are, and just want to get rid of that notification piece.
okay, so they're canceling that notification.
Yeah, when you change ownership.
Yeah,
And then section 11 has to do with the composting. And right now, a certified small farm has to have a minimum of 2,250 laying hens. Be a certified farm, which would be quite impossible to do small composting if you had that many hens. So, just a regular small farm only has to have 100. So they just want to change the certified small farm, do compost under the definition of small.
Yeah.
And then effective date would be July 1, 2022.
Yeah. But pretty straightforward and clarifying language.
Right.
Yeah. Did you have any witnesses that opposed any of these changes? No. And you had people in from the agency and.
Agency. The general counsel, policy director from agency that I state that. Agricultural Development Division of the agency, Water Quality Division. We had the chair of the Board of Civil Authorities concerned, and deputy chief counsel.
Oh, you spent some time there.
Yeah.
Yeah, are there any questions for Rodney?
No,
No?
good job.
I guess we're all set, Rodney.
All right, can I take
Yeah, I was gonna say you could take,
Yeah, you can take. you
it's
can
Senator
take
Pearson, so.
all 5 or 6 of them if you want. We're gonna be leaving at 11:15 and.
They're back for tomorrow morning. They're probably give me some brownie points for the next committee.
Well,
Thanks, Rodney.
if it's all we get is the extra decent chairs over here for the amount of extra work we do, you're still getting a good deal.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Rodney. Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna call it a day.
Could I have 1 minute?
1 minute, sure.
And Steve Carl was on for any questions.
So yesterday, but you refresh your recollection, a few weeks ago, you sent a letter to USDA's Food Safety Inspection Service regarding their interpretation of the personal use exemption as requiring every possible owner of the farm to be present when the animal is slaughtered, and to prohibit the use of custom slaughters. Yesterday, Will Stevens from Senator Stander's office got in touch. They have received a communication from FSIS. It's in draft form. It's not very helpful.
No kid.
It does say that family farms are going to be considered an individual household and therefore could exercise the personal slaughter exemption for the use for the family farm, the household of the family farm, but it would not allow multiple owners to who weren't in the same household to have one of them slaughter while the other did not. Basically, they're saying that it's an individual exception. And they are saying that custom slaughterers are not allowed outside of custom exempt facilities underneath the personal use exception.
Yeah, itinerant slaughter is considered custom slaughter.
Well, that's basically, maybe I just misspoke. Itinerant slaughterers are not allowed to be used under the personal use exception unless they're a custom slaughterer. So unless they're in that facility that meets all the requirements for a custom facility, they can't be slaughtering under the personal use exception.
Sounds like a step backwards.
It
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of is. So I will circulate that document. I'll send it to Linda so that you can have it and do what you will with it. But it was not, again, it's in draft form. It wasn't provided to us directly, to the General Assembly directly, even though you were the entity that sent the letter. It's not very encouraging.
No,
Guess
no.
we shouldn't have awakened the dog.
Well, they cover their own, don't forget.
Yep.
Protect your own. Well, we'll talk about and figure out what our next step is, and yeah, that's kind of a backwards answer. You know, you'd think they would want to have a person that's used to slaughtering to come to the farm and do that. And, no. Well, I guess we'll have to figure out our strategies and where we can go from here.
Right. I options for you, but they're probably not timely options.
Yeah.
It may take some effort and time.
Well, think about it and we'll deal with it when you get your letter.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
Thanks for the bad news. So I think we have a press conference coming up at right at noon time. And so with the task force and the bill that we passed for the dairy margin.
I have another
protection.
meeting, I actually have another meeting I have to go to.
Yeah, well, I think Brian.
Yeah, I'll accompany you.
I don't know, Corey, are you gonna be able to make it?
I'll try. There's another thing at noon, but see how long do you think it'll go?
10, 15 minutes.
Maybe, yeah. Andy, welcome, and this is Andy Burke's committee from Derby.
How you doing?
He's a former 2+2 student graduating from UVM. Must have been 10 years ago, Andy?
13 years ago, yeah.
13, yeah, and so Andy's here, he has a farm in Derby and participated in the dairy margin protection program. As a small farmer, he's gonna have a few words to say on and how that works on his farm. And
Spent a lot of time in Derby as a kid.
you did?
Yeah, I used to go to Rider Hill every couple weekends.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's still a busy place, isn't it?
I heard every Sunday.
Yeah, well, about 16, 17 years ago, I was one of those. Two
Yeah.
strokes running around there for a little bit.
Yeah.
You
Well,
probably know Dan Dodd then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so Dan's a couple years older than I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
He was at BTC with me.
Okay, yeah, so I used to ride on his parents' track on their farm and a few other places, but yeah, I raced up to like 85 cc and then mom and dad wanted me out of it.
yeah, well,
We negotiated an old muscle car. That was my negotiation to get out of motocross.
Oh,
So I still have a 1970 Chevelle thanks to that.
well, you were safer. You had at least some metal all the way around.
I mean, it's the Newport Hospital timer too.
Well, very good, guys, and